Sea of Thieves is in trouble. That's not hyperbole. The developer of the game, Rare Ltd, has gone on record to say that they're really unhappy with the quality of Season 14's launch, that they know they need to do better, and that there's a lack of quality control. We know this for ourselves because of what we've encountered on our live streams here on YouTube and over at twitch.tv/Jon Bardcore 6 days a week. I know, but a creator's gotta eat. So how did we get to this point? And more importantly, how can Rare dig themselves out of this hole and earn back precious game time from the players of Sea of Thieves? To talk about how Sea of Thieves has gotten to this point, we've got to take a look at how the game was actually developed at launch and some of the changes done and challenges encountered by Rare across Sea of Thieves' nearly 7-year lifespan. For example, back when the game was first released, one of the key metrics used to determine player enjoyment was the engagement rate, or the amount of time players would play for before encountering another crew. The theory was that within about 20 minutes, players should encounter at least one other player ship in their session, and by keeping servers consistently at that same metric, they could then manage that experience and get a positive response. Keep in mind, this was before hourglass and diving mechanics. Now with those two features added in, the expectation of time to engagement is far shorter. We as players can potentially encounter others on the seas within just a few minutes, and for some, that's exactly what they wanted. But for others, this is a disturbance because they feel as though their gameplay session is constantly being interfered with. So there's a balance at stake here. Another area that Sea of Thieves has found trouble in, but continues to work on a regular basis, are in the PlayFab multiplayer servers that the game is hosted on, and the Azure Service Fabric that the critical data, such as player progression, commerce, matchmaking, and migration services are stored. We're no longer in a state where a game's entire database is stored on one server in the basement of a company building anymore. Servers are spread across the entire world, each one of them hosting the Sea of Thieves environment and communicating with the Azure Service Fabric that reads and responds to player activity. For example, if you hunt down the mythical Shrouded Ghost, the PlayFab server you're on sends that data to the Azure Service Fabric, which then reads that data and awards the player the title Hunter of the Shrouded Ghost. Why all of this matters is due to something called continuous delivery. In the past, games have been developed in primarily 3 stages: prototyping, production, and then bug fixing after release. It had worked in the past that way because that's how the games industry had been for decades. With the rise of constantly connected devices to the internet, and more drastically, the rise of the server cloud systems like Microsoft Azure, it was now possible for games to be developed on a rolling basis. Doing so would theoretically mean less crunch for developers, fast feedback, long-term sustainability, and reduced costs. But it feels like what's been happening more recently is that we're on a railroad track with predetermined station stops that will see updates launched at, or at bigger stops where we see a season launch. These small stops are usually on a monthly basis, while the season stops are on a quarterly or 3 to 4 month basis. This may not sound like a lot, but when these updates are now coming with the expectation of new, whether that's new items in the game to use, new cosmetics to wear, new voyages to undertake, or new systems to dive into, it can lead to a technical debt of sorts. This debt revolves around ensuring that the features introduced in new patches don't interfere with established features already in-game, and vice versa, that the features added in don't interfere with potentially future expansions as well. It may sound confusing, and that's okay, because development is not easy. Take, for example, the Arena mode in Sea of Thieves. This mode was developed alongside the anniversary update in Sea of Thieves to bring new players into the game and bring back those that had fallen off during the first year. But unlike the rest of the anniversary update, which was integrated into the main adventure servers of the game, Arena mode had been developed as an independent environment. This would mean that now features that were being developed in adventure would now either have to work with, or at the very least, not interfere with what was going on in Arena. In addition, Arena had its own independent development cycle. which would eventually lead to cries from the player base that there wasn't anything changing about the mode compared to Adventure, which received regular updates. Eventually, the decision was made by Rare to close Arena, and the reason given was that only roughly 2% of the player base was still using it. Regardless of how you feel about the reason, the technical debt incurred by Arena was not something that Rare was interested in duplicating in the future. That's why when Hourglass was eventually introduced into the game, it was done within the Adventure environment. Back to continuous delivery, one of the main focal points in developing this way is that you, as a developer, can guarantee that a game release is always shippable. On top of that, by committing to large build releases every few months, the risk that something in that build will cause an issue rises exponentially. So, with all that being said, here's what I would like to see moving forward from Rare to ensure a better quality experience for players in Sea of Thieves. First, eliminate seasons, or at the very least, eliminate the predetermined 3-month timetable that seasons are currently set on. If the goal of a season is to provide players with a new, unique experience that isn't in the game currently, 3 months has proven that it's hit and miss in terms of results. Sometimes we get bangers, and other times we get duds, and every once in a while, we get something like with what happened with Season 14's launch, which shouldn't happen. Second, assuming that the content for Season 15 is already cooking, commit to a period of bug bashing. Get the community involved, create rewards for it if you want, take in all the support tickets you can from the community regarding every bug, major or minor, and coordinate based on severity, then smash them. On top of that, free insiders. Let content creators stream insiders to highlight the opportunity to break the game and show how to send in reports so that other players never have to deal with them in the live game. Third, update your community. And while I appreciate the fact that there's one guy in Rare that's apparently the bad news bearer of the team, let's spread it out amongst the different teams, shall we? I feel so sorry for you, Drew. Remember, we used to get updates from Joe Neat on a nearly weekly basis, and I'm not asking for Joe. Congrats on the promotion, by the way. Where's Everwild? I'm just asking for a bit of FaceTime from someone on the team on a consistent basis that's talking about the real issues that players are encountering today and what you're doing to correct that. I've spent thousands of hours in this game, even before I started creating content for it, and I'd like to spend more. But after nearly 7 years, I'm asking you to earn it, Sea of Thieves. But that's just my opinion. What do you think the state of Sea of Thieves is, and what changes do you think Rare needs to make in the months and years to come? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, this is Jon Bardcore signing off, saying so long and take care.